I'm excited to talk to you today about healthy role modeling. So whether you have children, grandchildren, if you're an aunt, if you're a babysitter, if you're a worker that has any sort of impressionable youth around you, the actions you do in terms of eating and movement and overall activity really leave a lasting impression. So here's what I'd like you to think about around that is, sometimes we don't think we're doing anything that could be damaging. Words like, I have to, be careful tomorrow because I splurged today, or nitpicking and demonstrating disordered eating, even if it's like a more OCD habit. And none of this is judgment. I say to people who have some of that disordered eating or an actual diagnosis to work with a healthcare provider or a mental health counselor before surrounding yourself with children who are very, very impressionable. It's one step in the right direction. So certain things you can do, and I'm going to speak to the actions that can promote healthy habits to people who are watching you, not only in actions, but also in words. So, planning your meals in advance so that you have a little bit of the different food groups, that you're eating the different rainbow, that you're meal prepping in a way that includes all nutrients is a great step in inspiring others. So when I bring, say, a big salad out to the table and eating as a family, whether you have children or you're babysitting or you're an aunt and you have time with those nieces and nephews, it's really great to do it all together and to not eat while walking around or on the fly. I'm a grazer, but I make it a habit. I make it a conscious effort to have family dinner. Maybe you can't do family breakfast, lunch, and dinner because we're all so busy. But family dinner is, one of those non-negotiables in my house because it allows us to sit down, to eat slowly, to have conversation, to take bites and talk and swallow slowly. I mean, these are all healthy habits that we take for granted. And to display different types of foods. I've had many guests over the years who, they say, oh, my kid only eats pasta and chicken nuggets. Well, certain kids have a sensitive palate, but, we craft that for them. Regardless of the relationship with that child. So if you only give them kid foods, you're going to really corrupt their taste buds. Now, if you've already done that, and you think there's no turning back, that's not true. It's slow introduction of other foods. I say, kids might not like broccoli or greens, but if you make it into a broccoli forest and you make it playful and make your food enjoyable and more like an experimentation process, an adventure, a culinary, exploration, then kids are more likely to try it, to frame it as fun instead of ew, broccoli, or yuck, spinach. So it's about, presenting different colors and talking about why those colors matter. And you as the representative, the role model, eating them slowly and saying, wow, that tasted so good, instead of, oh, I have to eat my greens. We are marketers. And as a person who has a formal training in marketing, I always try to say to my, clients, or my fitness participants or any of my friends or family, is every word that leaves our mouth leaves a lasting impression in the same way that every word used in a marketing campaign carries value. So by saying to your children, your grandchildren, or any child in your life, I'm so excited to try this new green. I've never had it before. So as an example, as I say, there are these new greens out that have a kosher symbol on them because they're grown hydroponically. Vertically, they're not exposed to the soil, so they have less chance of having bugs. It's called Arrow Farms. And I always say, and I said to my kids the other day, I'm so excited to try this lettuce. A, because I don't have to clean it, and B, because it's supposed to be more flavorful, grown in a different environment, and it's a great education experiment because I teach them how it's grown and where our vegetables and fruits come from, and that knowledge, because we're so kind of, pulled away from where our food supply comes from. Those, farmers we don't really have a connection to like back in the day. So, even explaining it to them or taking them to a farmer's market, introducing them to a CSA, community, garden, it gives kids a conscious understanding of where our food comes from. And then they're more inclined to want to try it. And food that is majorly processed, like noodles and chicken nuggets, and that's fine once in a while, but learning about it and inspiring connection inspires kids to try things. Negative words like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. That wasn't good for me. Or I can't believe I did that. I'm so mad at myself. I'm going to go, work out for an extra hour. That language promotes guilt. It creates an association with food that food is bad, when really food is fuel. And changing that script, communicating that food is good for us, and that food choices matter, and that food comes from all different places, reignites an interest. It makes kind of a learning experience. So too with movement. So I've talked a little bit about ways to inspire food consumption, and that there's no shame or guilt, and to rewire why it's important to eat slowly and as a family and from different sources and different colors and trying different foods, really experimentation. Same is true with our movement. So, saying to kids like, why don't we walk to the ice cream store? Not because exercise, we have to, burn the calories before we eat them. It's not about that. It's about saying like, we can do things together for movement that aren't punitive, that aren't boring, that aren't shameful. Like that fitness is fun. So like working out with my kids when they were young, even before I had children, I worked out with my nieces and nephews. I ran around, I danced in the living room, that I made movement fun. You think about kids and gym class, like they're sitting in a chair all day long, right? And they get asked to go into recess and they run out and they're bursting with energy, and movement is fun. There's a point where that switch turns and we're like, ugh, movement, it's so, tiresome, and it becomes a chore. It's like, what happens? It's because some messaging along the way told us that movement is a punishment, or that you can't fit it in. I always found movement fun, so I tried to imbue movement and all the activities in our household with fervor and enthusiasm. So, even doing household chores, we would do like kind of marbles in the jar and making it kind of celebratory through, you put enough marbles in the jar, you did your chores, you did your movement, you did all the things, instead of sitting and being too sedentary watching TV, using technology. They all matter, and you could do them all, but we have to make it celebratory. And I know I'm sharing very abstractly, but the point of doing that is to kind of plant some seeds that both eating healthy and trying new things and moving a lot in small increments can be a way that you connect deeper to yourself and as a family. And when I say really be conscious of the language that you heard maybe when you're young, I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and it was all about, shame in eating. Like, oh my God, too many calories. Now I have to have a low calorie snack. That's where low calorie foods became really popular. And I heard my mom say, and she didn't do it wrong, because she actually was pretty wise above her years and trying to insert positive messaging, but she still was a product of her generation, which was, exercise to burn the calories, eat those low calorie snacks, have those low calorie drinks. And now we have so much more knowledge base, but we still find ourselves saying, I shouldn't eat that, or I splurged too much over the holiday, or, Shabbat, or Sunday, or whatever day that you're eating a lot comes, and you say to your children, okay, we need to be more, the week is coming, I need to, watch what I'm doing and be more careful about my consumption. Your kids are listening. People are listening. Your coworkers who look up to you are listening. Choose your words wisely. Maybe before you speak, and this is that mindfulness practice, pause and say, how do I want to craft this language so I build a future generation of conscious eating, that we can enjoy food, we could eat a little bit more over our caloric intake that we plan, but we could also say to ourselves, I'm going to be more calculated and prepared in my consumption. It's such a journey of adjusting. But what I'd like to inspire you to do is meal prep with your kids. Try new foods. Buy those little cookie cutters that cut fruits and vegetables or other foods, even your bread, your whole grains, or whatever you're measuring out, into shapes. Make food fun. Make those words that come out of your mouth a shift, positive thinking. Now, positive thinking is kind of overdone, right? I'm always like, be positive. But really, there's a way you can do it in a way that matters, that inspires kids to launch into the next generation of having a healthy relationship with food. That not measuring everything they're doing and getting on that scale and butchering their mind into thinking they did something wrong. Being free and lighter and liberated to go about it in a more appropriate way. So I hope that these ideas inspired you to be a better role model, a healthy role model, and affect change in future generations by being positive about the food you eat, no matter what kind of food it is, and to explore and adventure through those different foods. Thanks for listening.